Welcome to this BVTV SpotCast Trilogy, coming to you from the UK studios of BizVision. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. I'm passionate about the need for sales skills in every business, and I'm a true believer in that saying that nothing happens until something is sold. But sales has changed, and it continues to change. True sales professionals know that, and they're determined to keep ahead of the curve. That's why they need to get to know and buy this book. Here it is. I was getting so excited about the book, I forgot to say curve. It's my guest's SpotCast Trilogy, Alex Dipchak. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks a lot, Malcolm. I really appreciate it. And I like that quote. And I'll add to it that not only nothing happens until something is sold, but nothing can happen without something being sold. Yeah. So finance, operations, all those are dependent upon having a product that's out there selling. So yes, it's a very important skill set for people to have.
Well, I was telling you before we went on air that I got my sales training was with Mattel toys at the end of the 60s, which is brilliant training, don't get me wrong. But then they said, everything that's not natural has to be sold. But these days, even Mother Nature's got to be sold, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Some of the principles still stay the same.
Yeah, they do. They do. Welcome to this Alex Dipchak Sales Today Trilogy. Now, you've created this fantastic book, and it really is really good. I've enjoying dipping into it, because it's not a book that you want to sit down and read. You want to sit and read a bit and then reflect upon each of the 100 there. We'll draw on it over the 3 videos. For episode 1, though, I'm kicking off with a multi-layered question. What do you think is the makeup or the characteristics of a professional salesperson of today in this altered world? What do they have to learn? And what also do they need to forget?
It's a hard-hitting question, but it's definitely a good one. So thank you, Malcolm. And I think that sales has evolved a lot. So I said some of the principles still remain the same, but you just think about this evolution over the past 20 years away from closing techniques and some of those kind of things that people perceive as slimy, or slick. And now we're going through another mini revolution today of the last 2 years since the pandemic of how to be selling virtually and how to connect people through atypical channels. Yeah. So I think that Daniel Pink really sums it up well. I'm going to paraphrase. I don't remember the exact quote, but just how salespeople have really shifted from being these holders or suppliers of data and information to now being the clarifiers and curators of it. So we need, as salespeople, to be not only the clarifiers and curators, but also these kind of stewards or shepherds of the entire process, because there's a lot out there for people to grasp and understand. So we need to be the ones to say, okay, this is a fit, this is not a fit, this is something you should consider, this is not something you should consider. So we really need to help people walk through that process.
Yeah. Do you think salespeople are now being valued within a company? And it's always been said that once somebody starts to panic, they get rid of the sales team. Mattel Toys was had good training. They got rid of all of us, the sales team, on Christmas Eve one day.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's unfortunate timing.
And pulled out of the UK. But lots of companies, once they start to get worried, the red line goes through the sales and marketing team. I think that's tough, don't you?
It is very difficult. Yeah. And I mean, the good news about sales, and I actually just wrote an article about this that came out earlier this week, but so I'll send that over to your listeners. But you typically, not only is it an important item, as we talked about, nothing happens without a sale, either before or after, really. But people are usually given kind of a heads up, like, hey, you need to pick up your performance. You kind of have a performance improvement plan, and you have 3 months to do so. So there is a little more security. I think people are always like, oh, sales, you're just a number. They're going to get rid of you. But I haven't seen that quite as much in my experiences. So that's the good side of it. So I think people recognize that sales is valuable. And especially in today's day and age, when things become much more relational and much more complex, they need to dedicate more time to really giving people the runway to being successful.
Okay. So just that last part of my question to you there, what do you think salespeople need to forget in this altered world?
Yeah. So I think some of the ones I touched on earlier, but closing techniques, I think that if you really differentiate your process, Lee Saul is one of the people I talk about in the book as one of the best sales books out there, Sales Differentiation. He talks about how if you manage a process really, really well, they're gonna not only want to select you, but they're gonna probably pay a premium for it. Yeah. And you focus less on that closing process at the end. So less on closing, less on objection handling, or as I call it, objection defeating. So people, a lot of times they're like, oh, I need to take down this objection. And it's like, well, no, they're opening up to you. They're expressing a concern. There's a question. It means that they're interested. So let's think more about how to answer their question, make them feel comfortable with your solution, resolve any potential issue, not like you're, putting a dagger through the heart here. It's not something to be conquered, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think that's another one.
Yeah. So increasingly, though, professional salespeople are meeting professional buyers. The old days when the buyer was going to retire, so we'll put him in an office for a while, and he'll do the buying and things like that. The new buyers today are skilled in negotiation, skilled in should we say pricing strategies and so on. Do you think that buyers have had to, salespeople have had to change to understand the mental process or the buyer behavior more than what they would do in the past, where they would be selling a product?
I believe so. I mean, as I think it's CEB came out with a study that now it's 7 people that are involved in the process. So you also need to get your executive team involved in the process. And I talk about that with some of the internal kind of coaching and just keeping people on track. So you need to loop in your managers and your executives into that negotiation process. But I think also people need to realize that when somebody's throwing out, like, I need a 10% discount, and, they have these professional negotiation tactics that, unless you were trying to rip them off, like, you set your price for a reason. So now they need to give you something in return. So they need to give you a reference, a referral, maybe a higher order volume. There has to be something in return. So how do you manage that? If you're giving concessions, what are the stipulations? How do you manage the process of communicating that? So I think that there definitely are some skills that people need to realize as the universe gets bigger of who's involved in these decisions and the multiple skill sets. But recognizing that you can't just jump when they say, you can't say how high when they say jump. You got to make it more of a dialogue, because it's supposed to be a relationship. It's not supposed to be your vendor. And
let me squeeze one last little question in before we leave episode 1 is, what are you proud about of being a professional salesperson?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think it kind of ties into some of the things that I would say people need to learn more. But so I'll answer your question first, and then some of the additionals that people can talk about. But I would say what they really need to focus on are building this relational complex environment. You need to really understand your buyers. You need to be doing what's best for them. They're long-term and not your quota. So you need to be saying, okay, maybe we aren't a good fit here. And that line actually really opens up people's minds. Like, oh my God, you're willing to pass an opportunity and put my needs above your own. That's someone I can potentially trust. So that's something I've been doing well, and kind of taking that third-party evaluator perspective. Right. But just kind of some of the other items I would say. So in addition to that objectivity, I would say you need an element of creativity, how you're reaching out to people. So if you have that creativity and objectivity, you're going to be able to facilitate that connectivity with your clients. So making lives easier is another one. And then I would say last is just supporting them holistically. And bringing them growth in their own business, because as you say, you're not trying to scam them, you're trying to help them grow their business, isn't it? Thanks, Alex. Now let me remind our audience of your URL or your website for your book, which is obviously, viewers, you can see it on the screen behind me, but for listeners, let me spell it out. It's all the W's, 100 and 100 in numbers, please, 100, salesskills.com, 100salesskills.com. And don't forget to check that you've got 2 S's in the middle there, salesskills.com. Right, and this book, really good. 100 Skills of the Successful Sales Professional, and it's published by Business Expert Press. I'm enjoying dipping in. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it, Malcolm. And I think that the one closing summation I would provide is just, how do you mitigate your own self-oriented desires, extract yourself out of the situation, and input your client's mindset in there to figure out how to make their lives easier.